Good morning. I am here to announce that I'm going to be signing 4 executive orders later on this afternoon, and so I just wanted to brief everybody and kind of give you a rundown of them. Number one, we're going to roll out our cabinet order. So statutorily, we have 15 different cabinet positions, and you know, I spent a lot of time going through the different cabinet positions from previous governors. I mean, I went back all the way to Walters and studied his, and studied Keating's, and studied Governor Fallon's, and made some changes to it because I was elected to make sure that we are holding all the different agencies and commissions accountable. And once we get that cabinet correct and we get all the different agencies reporting to the correct folks, it's going to be amazing how we deliver services for Oklahomans. So a couple highlights. You know, normally the Secretary of Finance had so many things to do. It was way too much for one person. So I've actually split that into 3 different people. We've got a Secretary of Budget now. We've got our COO, who's the Secretary of Agency Accountability. And then we also have a Secretary of Digital Transformation. It's a big goal of mine to deliver services and be a customer-focused government and make sure that we are bringing Oklahoma government into the 21st century. So we're going to be rolling out some exciting things on digital transformation, and I needed a secretary focused on that. Also, Secretary of Health and Human Services was normally together. That was about $8 billion of our budget, and so we broke that out, and we're going to have one person focused on health and mental health in our state. And then we have somebody focused on human services and child services all together. So that was an important change. And then education was such an important part of our administration that I didn't want a barrier between between our Superintendent of Schools that's elected, Joy Hoffmeister. So I wanted to make sure that she had direct access to us. And it was so important that we named our Secretary of State also education as well. So that's Michael Rogers. So that's going to be really important for us. And then tourism and commerce, we have to rebrand our state. For us to be top 10, I wanted to break those 2 out and have tourism and branding separate from commerce. So you'll be seeing that later on today. The second executive order that we're rolling out is agency transparency. So on my first day of governor, I was tasked with researching how many state agencies contract with outside lobbyists. And I was shocked to find, and Oklahomans I'm sure will be shocked to find, I couldn't find out the information. I couldn't find out how many state agencies are hiring third-party lobbyists and what they're paying for it. So I've instructed all agencies to let me know how much they're paying lobbyists, and all the way back to 2015, and to make sure before they enter into any new contracts or renew any contracts that they get permission from the secretary that they report up to. So I think that's going to be something that Oklahomans entrusted me to make sure that our tax dollars are spent effectively and efficiently. And it's just, it's frightening to think that one of our state agencies would hire a third-party lobbyist that then turns around and lobbies these gentlemen behind me on make sense legislation and things that are going to move our state forward. So we're going to put a stop to that, and I've got to first get the information so I can share that with the citizens of Oklahoma. The third thing, agency employee reform. This executive order maintains the hiring freeze on state employees as it pertains to classified employees. So classified is a new term. It's a protected class. So there's unclassified employees. That would be like an at-will employee in the private sector. So you've got at-will, and then you've got non-classified, and you've got classified. The problem with classified employees over the decades and decades of state agencies, there's some classified positions that are no longer needed. You can't move them around. You can't promote them. So I want to be clear. We have fantastic state employees in Oklahoma, and some of them are classified. But to really move the needle and give our agency heads the ability to transform their agencies and be customer focused and make sure that we can innovate and we can deliver services for Oklahoma, we've got to make sure that we don't grow those classified positions, that they're unclassified. So we want to give the agency heads the ability to continue to hire and move the needle, but we don't want to do that through the classified employees. The fourth executive order we'll be rolling out today. I've instructed the Commissioner of Public Safety to sell the state airplane. I've been in aviation and had airplanes, and I'm a pilot. I'm not only looking at our aviation fleet, but I'm also looking at all state vehicles to make sure that they're used efficiently and effectively. So we're going to be selling the state airplane that was basically just for the governor's travel, and it just wasn't a good use of taxpayer dollars. And so I take it very seriously. Oklahomans elected me to represent and be the chief executive of the executive branch and make sure that every tax dollar is being spent based on the values and visions of Oklahoma being a top 10 state. So when I see inefficiencies or see things that don't make sense, I'm going to tell the Oklahoma people, and I'm going to make sure that we hold folks accountable and we deliver better services. So I appreciate folks here from the House and the Senate standing with me. And with that, let me just open it up to a few questions.
Governor, you said that when it came to agencies hiring outside lobbyists that you were going to put a stop to that practice. So is that something you'd like to end? I mean, eventually to where agencies are no longer hiring outside lobbyists?
That's correct, yes. You know, there's what's called legislative liaison. So a liaison is somebody that works within the in the agency that has to or that is a liaison back to the legislature, providing them information, providing them reporting. So that is you know, a useful part of state government, educating the legislature. But I have a problem when they go out and they hire third-party lobbyists to come in and then influence the decisions of the folks behind me to make the right decision. So lobbyists have a place, and if a private industry is hiring a lobbyist to come in and advocate for their needs, that's one thing. But Oklahomans do not want our state agencies spending money to then try to protect their own interest.
Would this apply to higher ed as well?
It's going to apply to every single state agency.
You said that the agency must get permission first from the cabinet secretary, so that doesn't sound like a freeze.
Which one are you talking about?
Lobbyists.
There is a freeze. There is an exception in there that if a cabinet secretary wants to review it, they can review it. But ultimately, yeah, and improve it, look at the contract, understand it, but ultimately it's a freeze moving forward.
Yeah, we're first trying to gather the information. I couldn't even find how many different agencies employed that. So that was the first part of this executive order, is to find out how many are employed third party, what we pay them. I think that's an important part for me to understand. And so we wanted to freeze any new you know, any new contracts being negotiated. But of course, there could be an exception to the rule, and so that's why we put in there, if they bring that to the secretary, we'll have a chance to review those.
How many have you found so far?
Between 35 to 70. 35 to 70 agencies.
Governor, can you help me understand the thinking behind rolling the Secretary of Education and Secretary of State together? Couldn't somebody on their face look at that and say, but that's like slightly less focus on education if you don't have a Secretary of Education?
Yeah, the reason it was, well, we've got a separately elected superintendent of schools, right? And so Joy Hoffmeister, I want to make sure she knew that she has direct access to me and to the governor and what we're doing, and make sure that I have understand her needs so I can support her. So just putting another layer in there with just a Secretary of Education, I thought it created a little bit of a battle there when the people elected Joy Hoffmeister, and so that's why I chose to do it that way.
So the Secretary of State have any additional duties in terms of education, or what will they be doing?
Yeah, so the Secretary of Education is on several different, I guess it's constitutional, they're on several different boards as the chairman of different boards, and so you have to have somebody to represent the cabinet on those different boards. So he'll be filling those positions as chairman of the different boards.
How many classified employee positions are there currently in the state?
Oh man, that's a good question. I don't have a good answer for you. 60, 70, I don't know, 80%. We'll have to look into that, but it's the majority are classified.
Where would the money go from the sale of the state plane, and do you anticipate purchasing another state?
The sale of the state plane would just go back in and reduce the amount of appropriations that would go into the Department of Public Safety. No, I do not anticipate buying another state plane. And I'm going to be reviewing others. I don't even know exactly how many state planes we have, but we're going to look at that. We're going to look at all of our state vehicles, and it'll lower the amount of appropriations that has to go into that agency for 2020.
So you planning to fly commercial then when you go to state?
Yeah, I'd fly commercial, or there's the business roundtable that businesses could donate hours flight time to the governor if we need to get somewhere quickly to go meet a prospect or meet a potential business that's looking to relocate to Oklahoma. So I love private aviation. It's fantastic. But when I look at the amount of the dollars it costs per hour to operate that with our pilots and with the training and with the technology, if you're not flying, 400 hours a year, it just doesn't make sense to own your own airplane. You could be better off by just straight up leasing planes from the different outside agencies.
Has your security team allowed you to fly just for recreational reasons?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Does your security team let you fly still?
I haven't flown since November 6th, since the election. I'm sure they would let me. I haven't flown. I've got a little single engine Cirrus, but planning on selling that now that I'm governor. So.
You know how much that plane, how much it's worth, or how much it will save the state on a yearly basis?
Yeah, the appropriations for that is approximately $1 million, something like that.
Yearly, would be accurate, it's a yearly. Be a yearly deal. It's a King Air 350, so I haven't looked exactly what it would sell for, but we'll get market value when we sell it, and I'm sure it's going to sell for $2-3 million, something like that.
Are there other planes you can plug in, say, like tornado hits out, fell to Oklahoma, and you need to get there in a hurry?
Yeah, and that was the deal. There's already a helicopter that I can fly if we need to get to different places around the state to look at it. The National Guard has a helicopter that they take the governor if there's a natural disaster. The OHP has a helicopter. The OHP has Cessna 172s, which are single engines. So if I need to fly in one of those, I have no problem flying in the single engine. We've got fantastic folks at OHP that can fly those, and I'll be happy to utilize those planes too.
Thank you. 2 more questions.
Governor, you mentioned, to go back to appropriations. Since you've come into office, I think the guys behind you might know a little better than me even, but what is the appropriation level for the governor? I think it's gone down in recent years. Has that posed any issues for you in sort of assembling a staff? I mean, I think it's more of a shoestring than it used to be. Is that correct?
Yeah, the appropriation budget for the governor's office, which is the chief executive of the state, is like $1.6 million. Okay, and just so Oklahomans and all you folks know, a U.S. senator's staff is around $3 million. So a U.S. senator gets about $3 million to run their staff. But here's the issue: traditionally, the governors have borrowed money from different agencies and kind of had staff plucked in different areas, so it was kind of a shell game. I'm trying to bring that all back and just be transparent, and I'll ask the legislature for, here's what we're really utilizing in the governor's office to run and be the chief executive of the state, and so that's what we're trying to make sure that the folks behind me know, and I want to be transparent with Oklahomans. Instead of borrowing it from OMES or this agency or that agency, we just want to say, here's what it's really costing to run the governor's office. But we won't have to, the net dollars won't change. Just where we grab them from, we'll try to be a little bit more. We'll try to be a lot more transparent with the legislature and say, here's how much we need to spend to run the executive branch.
Hey, what would you say to classified employees that are like, hey, these are job protections that I have, and you're going to take these away? I could get fired anytime a new administrator comes in. And how do you protect?
Sure. Well, for employees, and whether it's the private sector or it's the state government, there are a lot of protections for employees. In the private sector, if you wrongfully terminate someone, there's definitely course of action. They go to the Department of Labor. They can bring an action against their employer if they're wrongfully terminated. There's all kinds of protections. The problem with the classified employees, the merit protection system, it just you really can't. There's examples of employees that are fantastic that have worked at an agency for 20 years. They would love to promote them, but because they're classified, they can't move them up because they don't have a college degree, for example. But the agency head would love to move them on up. So we just don't have any flexibility with how we pay, with how we change them around, or get rid of a classified position that doesn't. We don't need that anymore in state governments, because over the years things get away from us. And so Oklahomans want me to look at this. I'm telling them, here's what we need to do to change, to move the needle. This is going to be a great deal for Oklahoma, and it's going to unlock some handcuffs on our agency directors to really move the needle and provide better services.
Can I ask a question of the lawmakers by chance? Is that okay?
It's up to them.
You may not have an answer to this, but you guys are in your second term now. During your first 2 years, did you have any awkward situations where a private lobbyist or a third-party lobbyist from a state agency was meeting with you? I mean, do you have any anecdotes for us in that regard? Did you find it weird? Anybody? Bueller?
I don't have a comment on that. I'm not going to steal the governor's time.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much, and we'll get those to you today.